In the next half hour, you will see wild and crazy footage caught on tape. Some of it will shock you. Other footage will seem entirely beyond belief. Wild and crazy caught on tape. Location, Russia. In today's program, a truck crashes a wedding. A tragic helicopter accident. A devastating fire 100 yards away from the Kremlin. A bear gets a little too cuddly. A woman falls off a ladder. Some military exercises gone wrong. When things fall apart, we'll be there. On Wild and Crazy Caught on Tape. Location, Russia. Aviation accidents happen quite often during flight demonstrations at air shows. We got this unique video after one of them. During an air show near St. Petersburg, Russia, a pilot puts his helicopter through its paces. Captivated, the air show audience is completely unaware of what's about to happen. The pilot miscalculates his landing velocity and hits the ground too quickly, smashing the landing gear upon impact. The helicopter then rolls over, and the crowd hightails it out of there. The fuel might explode at any second. The pilot's life is in grave danger, and he must get away from the helicopter as he's literally sitting atop a tinderbox with a lit fuse. Within moments, ambulance and fire trucks arrive on the scene. Racing against time, one brave fireman risks almost certain death to put out the flames and avoid a catastrophic explosion. Take another look. Fortunately, no one, including the pilot and all spectators, was injured at all during the incident. The following footage is some of the rarest we've got and involves the tragic crash of a Russian Ka-50 Black Shark battle helicopter. Apparently, the crew had come up with some aerobatic maneuvers that subjected the chopper to more stress than it could withstand. If you look closely, you can see what seems to be a small explosion on the underside of the helicopter. Tragically, there were no ejection seats in the helicopter. As a result, the entire crew, including the infamous Russian test pilot General Major Boris Vorobyov, all died in the crash. A horrific fire threatens to burn everything around it, less than a football field away from the Kremlin. The old Manege building is in the very center of the capital of Russia, a stone's throw from the Kremlin itself. Suddenly, a fire starts and spreads with alarming speed. The first fire brigades rush into the inferno. What you're about to see is very rare footage of the burning interior of Manege. The vaults could give in at any moment. Sparks and debris fall from above, and the tar is ablaze. The beams begin to collapse. From the outside, the walls can still be hosed down with water. But the heat from inside is so enormous that the burning parts of the pediment begin to crumble. It's incredibly dangerous to approach the building, even in special fire protection gear. In this kind of heat, the roof may collapse at any time. Firefighters demonstrate unbelievable heroism and are able to save the building from being totally consumed. Incredibly, no one was injured. You can't be too careful around bears. This bear's owner insists on keeping it chained. Not a bad idea at all, considering the bear has a tendency to grab anything and everything within reach. A man is stupid enough to dangle his camera over the bear, who, after a moment or two of this teasing, snatches it. He sniffs it, bites it, and despite the best efforts of the people around him, starts swinging it around and smashing it on the ground. In fact, he looks like he's purposefully trying to destroy it, perhaps just to teach its owner a lesson. While the camera owner and trainer try to get it back, the bear amuses himself with the device. A crowd gathers. The dangerous game comes to an end when the bear decides that cameras just don't taste that great. The camera owner gets his camera back, or what was left of it, and ideally learns a lesson about bears that day. Meanwhile, in other bear news. A reporter from Samara TV is assigned to cover a story on bears in the traveling circus. She decides to give her report while standing next to one of them. As you can see, the animal starts out rather friendly and playful. However, something then makes him change his mind. He decides to attack the young woman. Perhaps it was the treat in her pocket that attracted him. It all happens in a heartbeat. In a fraction of a second, the reporter is in the bear's paws. Luckily, the trainer was close at hand and was able to stop the beast. You should know that bears can still bite, even with a muzzle on. And here's one careless reporter who will remember that fact for the rest of her life. Next on our program, Wild and Crazy. Strange and surreal. Shot without actors or scripts. These are real incidents, real accidents, real people. On Wild and Crazy, caught on tape, location Russia. One night, the Moscow equivalent of 911 received a strange call. A young man, somehow, had gotten his head stuck in a video game machine. Unfortunately, the call was not a prank. The inquisitive teen had decided to look into the cashier's slot to see what was inside, or perhaps to see if he could grab some money. Well, his head just squeezed through, but when he tried to pull it out, his ears got in the way. No matter how he tried, he couldn't get free. The unfortunate young man waited for help in this embarrassing position for over an hour. As soon as the rescue squad arrived on the scene, they took the veneer box off the slot and made the window bigger. However, this still wasn't enough because the victim's ears were still too big to fit through. In the end, rescuers slathered his head in vegetable oil, and the embarrassed youth was finally able to squeeze the old coconut out of the machine. Now he can tell his friends the story about the time he kept his head in the game. Deep in Siberia, in the town of Altai, a common local entertainment involves saddling a stallion while it's galloping. Keep in mind that this is an extremely dangerous idea, and one the stallions don't tend to enjoy much. In fact, look how one particularly enraged horse responds. It clubs an Altai cowboy on the head with its hoof. Now, in most rodeos, you tend to call it a day after you get flattened by a hoof to the head. In Siberia, on the other hand, this cowboy not only stays in the arena, but also eventually is able to successfully saddle the stallion. This next video is of a Russian Special Forces unit staging a mock arrest. The soldier playing the part of a felon was dragged out of his shelter, slammed up against the wall, patted down, and eventually handcuffed. So far, everything's going according to plan. Take notice of the next shot because it's a key moment. The guards lift the suspect to his feet and take him across the road for questioning. In the process, they accidentally smash his head into a metal post. The sound is unmistakable. The smart money says this poor guy never volunteered for any more exercises like this one again. It may look funny to us, but it wasn't so funny for him as he stumbled off with a sizable concussion. Celebration often calls for some champagne. Unfortunately, after a glass or two, it's often difficult to know whether the bridge is swinging or if it's just your head spinning. Here, several graduates decide to test the solidity of a suspension bridge. Swinging it a little too enthusiastically, the boys in collared shirts and girls in evening dresses fall into the river. These shots would surely embarrass their physics teacher. Their phys ed coach, on the other hand, would be proud as they're all able to pull themselves to safety. You can see that one half of the group finds itself on one side of the bank, while the other half ends up on the opposite side. Sadly, they can't celebrate together because, well, they've just purposefully wrecked the only bridge connecting the two shores.